Welcome to Masters Fantasy presentation of our Dynasty Spotlight Series. I'm your host, Jonathan, one of the commissioners here at Masters Fantasy Leagues, joined by two of our draft coordinators and our college experts. Today we're going to be taking a look at Travis Etienne, running back Clemson. Before we do, this is our Dynasty Spotlight Series here at Masters Fantasy Leagues. We specialize in Dynasty Leagues and redraft leagues. If you've never been in a Dynasty League, absolutely the best way to play fantasy football. I know you guys agree with that.
Love Dynasty football.
Absolutely.
Keep those guys for life.
Awesome. Going to jump right into it though. Travis Etienne, first question. How good of a prospect is he? And what current past NFL player would you compare him to?
I think Travis Etienne's a really good prospect on paper, and I think we've seen a steady progression of his skills too. And as a freshman and a sophomore, as he was younger, it was more just that big playability. That's the main thing he brings to the table, that burst, big playability. If he gets through the hole, he's gone 9 times out of 10. And as we've seen him progress, junior year and this year, we've seen him add that dimension of a receiving game, I should say. He's been able to catch the ball a little more and do a lot in space because obviously he's talented with his footwork, his speed. And I don't know if Alex is thinking of anyone in particular, but I kind of, in a weird way, not as much receiving-wise, but I kind of liken him to Alvin Kamara in the fact that he's not really a big running back. He's kind of thinner, maybe like 210, something like that. But he runs really hard. He runs through contact. He can break those tackles. And then he's got that quick burst, and he's able to make a lot more happen. I really like the potential he has, too, to get better as a receiver. And I think from there, his stock would just go through the roof. So as a prospect, right now, I like him a lot. But potential going forward, too, I really like what he could become.
Al, you agree?
Yeah, I think the doc hit it right on the nose there. Tremendous prospect in terms of, athleticism, speed, got a great burst, as a word the doc used. I think that burst says a lot about Etienne. Mm-hmm. Can get north and south in a hurry. He also has a little bit of subtleness and patience in his game too. He'll set up the blocks a little bit and then just go. Love that in running back. Kamara was a nice comp. That was one of the guys it's kind of hard to find a comp for him because he's a little smaller, but runs tough, so right. I like that about Kamara. His receiving skills are improving, so I hope he even gets more like Kamara in that sense. The doc kind of mentioned it, but my real concern with him is just in that size and just the NFL is a different league. These are grown men. Mm-hmm. I think he'll hold up just fine, but you never know. I think you said maybe 210. I think 200. I'd be interested to see the combine, what he weighs in at. If he comes in at 195, 197, all of a sudden I'm worried, can he be a bell cow back in the NFL? Even if not, I still think he can be very productive, especially for fantasy purposes, but just a little worried he's not going to be able to withstand, 300 touch seasons for a couple of years in a row. But definitely an exciting prospect, great college running back, a lot to get excited about. You want to get in destinations for him?
I actually had one player comp I was going to ask. One that I read, I was just going to run it by you guys. Dalvin Cook was a guy that I heard quite a bit about.
So I've seen that out there, and I just think Dalvin's a lot bigger, just a lot tougher. He might not be a lot bigger on paper, but just seems a lot thicker. I feel like he's had longevity issues too, but I like the comp, but I feel like Dalvin's more of a complete back than Etienne is. I hope I'm wrong. I hope Etienne can prove me wrong. But I feel a lot more comfortable giving the ball to Dalvin Cook 350 times in a year than I would Etienne.
Maybe not before this year.
Right, yeah.
But, this year's looking good. It's funny that because in the games I watched, he doesn't look like a very big back.
Yeah.
I was shocked to even hear 210.
I was going to say, I think it's closer to 2.
That's probably, I think that might be what he's listed at, but I don't know.
I was going to say, a lot of these college numbers, we really don't know yet.
Right.
But
and once it gets in the weight room in the NFL.
Right, yeah.
I'm sure that'll help too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm not sure how big Dalvin Cook was when he came out.
Yeah, I think it's probably about the same.
Yeah.
All right, and next one we're going to move on to is possible NFL destinations. What teams you think could possibly draft them, and which teams will be the best fit for them?
That's tough because there's a lot of. Alex talked about it recently too, how a lot of teams are going towards that committee approach. I'm not exactly sure if Etienne's going to get drafted in the first round. If he did, you would assume it would be by a running back needy team that's going to try and give him a heavy workload. Off the top of my head, I mean, it's kind of hard to think. The Texans are one that come to mind. I know they traded for David Johnson, but I mean, maybe second round. I don't even know if they have second round picks. They've traded so many. But I could see him going to a team like that, and I think that would be a perfect destination for him, really, to be with Deshaun Watson. I feel like they've desperately needed a running attack for a while now. I think that's the first that comes to my mind. I don't know if you guys got any in particular that you're thinking of.
Yeah, I got a couple that I like a lot. So, I talked about, I really love how it gets north and south quick. So I kind of like the idea of, like a zone blocking scheme, one cut and go. So Kyle Shanahan, the king of that, out in San Fran, I feel like he'd be a much better version of Raheem Mostert.
I'm just thinking, no more running back.
Yeah.
No.
But honestly, though, Mostert's 29 years old now. Tevin Coleman could be done there. McKinnon could. So it's like they've got all these guys there, but all those guys could be done anytime. So maybe all of a sudden they finally find the guy in Travis Etienne.
Right.
If not San Fran, another team that I mentioned before is Arizona as a team who I think could be looking for a running back if they don't bring back Kenyon Drake. And I think that's another great situation where, they spread out the defense. He can get north and south in a hurry, really, explode through some open holes next to Kyler Murray, which I think is very similar to Deshaun Watson.
Right.
I think both of those are pretty exciting landing spots.
Yeah, both good landing spots. See that pops to mind, maybe Miami.
Yeah.
Team that could use a running back. I think he'd look really good down there in a Dolphins uniform.
I think that would be a really good thing for Tua as well.
Yeah, say pairing with Tua, I like that.
Yeah, I completely agree. All right, going to move on to probably the most important question here, draft stock. Taking a look at upcoming, rookie dynasty drafts. I'm looking for the best and worst case scenario on him. And I'm going to use Clyde Edwards-Helaire as kind of like a compass. Last year, if Clyde gets drafted by Kansas City, take him at 1.1. So maybe your best and worst case scenarios for ETN.
So my best case scenario, if he lands in one of those spots I mentioned, like San Fran or Arizona, and some of these other running backs we'll talk about in later shows, if they don't go into the perfect spots, I would consider ETN at 1.1. There's scenarios where I see that. Do I think I would take him there? I don't know, but it's possible. So I'd say ceiling 1.1, floor maybe like 1.6, 1.8. I'd say I really don't see him dropping too far, but
I agree with you too on the floor there. Obviously the ceiling, right situation, the talent's there. He's got a good shot to be the 1.1. And I don't think he falls that far, even if it's not in a great situation, because we saw last year. DeAndre Swift was the number one guy on paper, prospect-wise. He ends up going to the Lions, who seem to have carry on, maybe not the best situation on paper. And he was still going, pretty high in all these drafts. The talent kind of overrules the situation in those scenarios, but at the end of the day, a best situation would be best for him, and that's what would put him at 1.1. I can't see him falling out of the top 5 or 6 either.
Yeah, good stuff. And actually, just sitting here thinking about it, I actually think that worked out really well for DeAndre Swift.
Yeah.
I still think you see the talent in Detroit. And then, just off topic though, I actually wouldn't have hated Swift. I think I'd like Swift in Kansas City over Clyde. We won't get into that.
Yeah.
It's just a thought. All right, guys, going to move on to the last question here, and this is a Dynasty football outlook. I think I know both your answers already, just wanted to ask. The question is, in 3 to 5 years, will we still be talking about Travis Etienne?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I would think so as well. I've seen nothing that really concerns me in terms of longevity at this point, and I think he's only getting better, so I think he's going to be around for a while.
Perfect. All right, good stuff, guys. That's going to wrap up this edition of the Dynasty Spotlight series on Travis Etienne. Check out the next episode. We're going to be doing Jamar Chase. We also currently have a couple quarterbacks posted in Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence. Thank you so much for listening.